Well, folks, we've done it. We've made it to the end of the Across the Timeways card review, and our reward is the sickest card in the history of Hearthstone. I don't even think that's an exaggeration. I legit think this is probably the coolest card I've ever seen in the game. This is Time Thief Rafam, a new 10 mana 10/10 legendary for Warlock. It's not just Fabled, it's Fabled Plus. Your deck size is 40, but has 10 Rafams. Don't worry, we're going to see them soon. Battlecry, if you played the rest, destroy the enemy hero. So we have this alternate win condition card here that just insta wins you the game. But to achieve that, you have to play all 9 of these guys first. And it does look like you have to play them. So stuff like Dirty Rat could actually be pretty darn disruptive to a deck like this. Dirty Rat beware. But I mean, if you're able to successfully navigate this game plan and play all 9 of these Rafams first, then finish on the big Time Thief Rafam, the opponent goes boom, which alternate win conditions I think make a lot of sense right now. We really have had kind of a greedy, like kill Jadens everywhere kind of meta, 100 armor opponents and stuff. Sometimes, it feels like you're getting into just like a grind battle at the end. Having an alternate win condition card like this can really help you do that. We've had Wheel of Death as well. Hasn't really solved that problem lately, but has existed at least as a counter of sorts. But here are the Rafams, so we can just talk about these. Tiny Rafam is Death Rattle, draw a Rafam. Green Rafam is give Rafams in your hand +2/+2, which is like actually an insane hand buff. Like, man, it might not hit a lot of Rafams often, but actually a crazy big hand buff for only 2 mana. Murloc Rafam reads Battlecry. The next Rafam you play costs 3 less. That's a 3/3 for 3. I guess they're all just they are all their stats and their costs are the same, just for the record, so I don't have to say that every time. But if that's like a 3 mana 5/5 that discounts another buffed Rafam, that's actually kind of a high tempo play. That's sort of crazy. Explorer Rafam allows you to discover a Rafam from your deck. War Chief Rafam reads Battlecry, gain 5 armor. If you control another Rafam, gain 5 more. Calamitous Rafam reads deal 6 damage to all minions that aren't Rafam. Saying Rafam is losing all meaning to me. Mind Flayer Rafam reads taunt Battlecry. If you're holding another Rafam, summon a copy of this. Which, man, 2 7/7s with taunt, actually pretty solidly defensive there. Giant Rafam costs 1 less for each Rafam that you've played this game. So if you've played the other 7 already, this could be super cheap. And then finally, Archmage Rafam, 9 mana 9/9, the final one there at 9, and Battlecry, transform all minions that aren't Rafam into 1/1 sheep. So listen, I think the average quality on these cards is honestly pretty solid. Like, none of them are like standalone amazing cards or anything. They certainly have some conditionality tied to other Rafams in many cases, but I don't think any of them like totally suck. And in fact, some of these are pretty great. Like Archmage Rafam, fantastic effect. That's just going to feel good to play in a deck like this where you're probably expecting to go long. You're going to have control tools. You're going to want to have some survivability, some removal, because you need time to get all your Rafams drawn and played, because you got to find them all and play them. That's an insane board answering, solution to crazy big late game threats and death rattles and starships and all that stuff, right? Just turning them into sheep is super clean and easy, and leaving a few sheep behind is not usually going to be a problem. So that's insane. Giant Rafam, with Rush, that gives that some nice immediacy. So even if that's 3 or 4 mana or something, because you haven't, gotten enough Rafams down just yet, you're going to be totally fine to play a 4 mana 8/8 Rush, right? Like, that's going to weave into some turn and feel great because it kills a 5/5 or whatever. You're fine. Mind Flayer Rafam, it is just a pile of stats with the taunts, but it's a big pile of stats, and presumably you'll have always a Rafam in hand because you're playing your 10 cost Rafam last. Now, I mean, obviously you may not have drawn it yet, but if you're waiting until that moment, right, there's going to be a Rafam in hand for the Mind Flayer Rafam. So The fact that they have taunt makes them impactful enough. I think you'll be able to do that for 7 mana sometimes, again, in a deck that's already running some survivability and stuff. Calamitous Reform's just insane, like great board clear. You just run this card anyway. This is like actually a card that's making your deck stronger, dealing 6 to all minions that aren't Reformed. So, if you happen to have some Reforms on board, they're safe, but that's basically just going to be a board clear very often against your opponent's stuff in the mid game. That's awesome. Warchief Reform, this one's maybe one of the weaker ones to be, but it's got armor at least, so you don't feel like you're just dead in the water when you play this out, especially if it does heal that 10 armor would be really nice, but controlling another Reform might be difficult. Sometimes it'd be hard to weave 2 into a single turn, or hard for 1 to get left behind on board. So I think often that's only going to gain you 5 armor, but still it's okay. I think that's the one I'm maybe like least excited to play in some cases. Explorer Reform, also one of the weaker like tempo plays. It's just sort of a 4 mana 4/4 that's getting you something, but definitely nice to help you advance the game plan, much like the Tiny Reform helping you advance the game plan. Getting those Reforms in hand is good for your green Reform. It's good for your Mind Flayer Reform. Theoretically could be fine for your Warchief Reform. You go into turn 7, you play a green Reform into a Warchief Reform. That's like a decent turn, right? So, the 4 and 5 are the ones that I'm like the least pumped about sometimes, but I think they're just cheap enough to weave into some late game turns, find a moment, it's going to be okay. Murloc Reform, actually sick, right? Because this can help fix problems on stuff like Warchief Reform, where, you play Murloc Reform, Warchief Reform's only 2 mana now. That's a pretty good 5 mana turn, right? So you could save that so that you're getting the Warchief Reform hit. Also, that's not this turn or anything, so you just save that up. Like, you play Murloc Reform on turn 3, and then on turn 4, play Mind Flayer Reform for 2 7/7 taunts on turn 4. Like, that's an insane tempo play. Like, that's actually just insane, getting a 3/3 into 2 7/7 taunts. That could be its own win condition almost. Like, you just hit them in the face with your big Reforms. Don't even worry about the late game win condition. And keep in mind too, like, you can hit the green Reform first. Imagine a turn 2 green Reform that gives all Reforms in hand +2/+2 into a 5/5 on turn 3 that then summons you 2 9/9s on turn 4 with taunt. That's insane. That's insane. And then Tiny Reform, that one's free. Just throw it in whenever you get your Reforms. Now look, right, there is obviously a consistency question hanging over the head of this entire deck, because you're going to have a 40 card deck. If you could just run 10 Reforms in a 30 card deck, the consistency here would be just off the charts insane. It would be a third of your deck. You'd be hitting everything all the time. So they're forcing you to go to 40 so that your deck's not too consistent. So it's hard to hit the turn 2, 3, 7 Reforms right in a row. Like, that's hardly ever going to happen. But I think the quality of card here is high enough, and particularly some of them are actually just really good, that it doesn't necessarily feel like you're going to be making your deck that much worse. And if you just run enough card draw, which we're going to see some card draw that could really support the Reforms nicely, you have some quality cards, some control cards, I don't think this is actually a giant ask. Now, like, again, a lot of games will just naturally kind of end before you get to the Reform, because, maybe you're playing an aggro deck and they just gas out and you've just won as a control deck or whatever. That's fine. I think, again, some of these Reforms are helping you do that. I think they're good enough that they help you achieve that goal on occasion. It's not like you're just running 10 dead cards in your deck, that you just have to tank the terrible plays. They're solid plays. So I think sometimes you'll win the game because of Calamitous Reform, because he's just an insanely good card. And then the full package will exist for the control matchups, the Death Knights that are going to 100 health or whatever, and you can't win organically. In those cases, you have the Time Thief Reform to come in and, finish the deal and solve the problem. Now, one big question mark looming over all this, though, right, is that you do have to play all of these if you played the rest of the Reforms. So if any Reform gets pulled by a Dirty Rat and killed or whatever, the whole game plan crumbles. So how prone to disruption are you? How much does the meta kind of level itself out around that? Because if this becomes good, then Dirty Rats show up, then this becomes worse, then Dirty Rats go away, right? And there's always this kind of finding the level aspect of that. So is the Reform package good enough that sometimes it's fine if you lose combo, but you're still competing? Seeing some of these hand buffs and copies and it actually might be kind of okay anyway. I'm sort of the belief that even if you lose your full combo, you haven't sacrificed that much that you can't still have a cohesive and competitive deck. And that's why I think Rafam's actually going to be pretty good. Like, prone to disruption, yes, but it's kind of good. It doesn't matter. It might be fine. There could be other ways to win the game, and you're just sort of adding 10 good cards to your deck. Now, obviously, you'd prefer a 30-card deck to a 40-card deck, but if the card quality stays high enough, then it's not a huge problem. So I actually think not only is Rafam a super sick card, I also think Rafam is actually a super good card as well. I think we're going to see meta decks absolutely built around this one. Moving on to the other legendary here for Warlock. This is the Chrono Gore. This guy looks super sick too. This art's just awesome. This is a 6 mana 6/7 dragon with Battle Cry. You draw your 2 highest cost cards, and then your opponent draws your 2 lowest cost cards. So this could be a good way for you to find some big awesome stuff, some big win condition cards. You might not want to run this with Rafam. You might risk losing your tiny Rafam, though. You'd have to be a little careful. It's possible anyway. You want to make sure you find some high cost Rafams, but you know, it doesn't have to be that. Lots of good high cost cards. We've seen the kind of Fire Rack package or whatever. Chrono Gore could certainly help you find some of that stuff, for instance. But why would you want to give your opponent low cost cards? Becomes the immediate question. It's like, well, I don't want to give them stuff, even if it's, you know, even if it's low cost stuff. Well, wait a minute. There's a new package alert. The package has arrived at your door. It's the Shred of Time package being added into Warlock here. We're going to have a few cards that put Shreds of Time into your deck. This is the Twilight Time Hopper. Shuffle 2 Shreds of Time into your deck. These, when drawn, deal 3 damage to your hero. So suddenly, if you got a few of these in your deck, your Chrono Gore is now not only drawing you your 2 highest cost cards, it is also potentially dealing 6 immediate damage to your opponent. It's a Leroy. Now keep in mind, cast when drawn as a keyword does mean that the opponent would, I think, draw a card after the Shred of Time resolves for them, because it does say like they are the ones drawing it. Here's another card, by the way. They're the ones drawing it. So I think they would still draw some cards. So you would still be giving them stuff, but you might say, hey, that's worth it to deal 6 and get 2 of my own things. So we're kind of going symmetrical on card draw, perhaps. Mine are going to be high qualities. There's going to be average quality from a cost standpoint, but also they're taking 6, which, you know, in that case, you might find that it's worth it. Also keep in mind, we did see the Warlock card previously, Divergence, which won't show up in this review because we already reviewed it, but split a random minion in your hand into 2 halves. Like, you could actually split Chrono Gore here and make 2 of these that are really cheap, play both of those, and then if you have enough Shreds of Time, actually deal 12 damage to the opponent for 6 mana, which becomes like an actual interesting finisher, because as we're going to see in this Shreds of Time package, it's a pretty aggressive package. It actually seems like it's going to get some chip damage early, play kind of quick and aggro-y, and then this could serve as a pretty nice way to finish, where even if the damage doesn't get there, you know, you're developing an ogre, but you're also hopefully drawing some other stuff that does help you end the game, because you're getting your biggest and best stuff. So maybe kind of a 1-2 punch there, where you're okay with giving the opponent a couple random cards off the cast when drawn, because you care mostly about the damage. Now, I don't actually think Divergence gets played with this, honestly. I think that card's probably too slow, but just an option. Just wanted to bring that card up mostly. So in essence, I do think, you know, this card's probably fairly specifically tied to the Shreds of Time. I don't know if this is going to be good enough outside of that, just because the symmetrical card draw is a lot less exciting in that world. It's not totally symmetrical, but you get the idea. Symmetrical for quantity, if not quality. It could be, because just drawing 2 high cost cards is valuable, especially something that happens immediately. Like, that can be valuable. So I think actually makes a lot of sense, as we're going to see in the Shreds of Time deck, which I think is going to be a good package, honestly. It could even overshadow the Rafam in some ways, because it's like a more, you know, fast, cohesive deck. So good in that, and like maybe still okay outside of that. You know, if the Shreds of Time didn't exist, I would say this is like a 3-star card, but with Shreds of Time, I think it's probably going to land around 4, for instance. So let's talk about this Shred of Time deck. This is the Twilight Time Hopper. It is a 2-mana 4/4, so big boy here already. With Battle Cry, shuffle 2 Shreds of Time into your deck. When drawn, deal 3 damage to your hero. So first things first, right? Like in an aggro deck, if you're all in on an aggro game plan, just trying to kill the opponent quickly, you're not really going to care about the downsides of the Shreds of Time here too much. Like obviously there could be some moments where you're racing your opponent and that 3 damage to face creates a change in the pace and they kill you that they otherwise wouldn't have. But in many instances, you're planning to be the aggressor. You're going to be the one dealing the damage. You know the game's going to have a really short clock anyway because you're either going to gas out or you're going to kill them. So who cares if I take another 3, 6, 9 damage along the way? It's not really going to be a downside because I get a 2-mana 4/4, which I'm pumped about. And then, of course, also if you turn the Shred of Time into an upside with Chrono Gore, it's like, hey, I'm just baking these in for later to have some finishing damage that can actually reach face and kill the opponent, which is nice. So I think this is actually really, really good minion, in other words. I think really nicely statted, sets up a little combo for your deck, and it's going to play nicely with some other things we see as well. So Twilight Time Hopper just looks really good. As does the Tachyon Barrage. This is a 2-mana spell. Art looks sick too. Deal 6 damage split among all enemies. Shuffle 2 Shreds of Time into your deck. Now, keep in mind, that can go face. That's all enemies, not enemy minions. That's crazy damage output. Again, if you get ahead and your opponent is playing from behind and you're able to like dictate some trades, get some chip damage through, this could be a crazy finisher. And it's got a downside baked in, sure, but it's, if you're ending the game on the Tachyon Barrage, especially ×2, who cares about the downside? The game's over. This is really efficient potential face damage. It doesn't even have to go all face to feel good. I could see a lot of scenarios where, you just want to clean up a 2/2 and a 1/1 for your opponent. You clean those up, you get 3 bonus to face, you hit some minions to face as well, your 4/4 smacking them, and it's just all adding up to like hyper efficient output for an aggro deck like this. This looks, again, really, really strong to me. Next up here is the Fate Breaker. This is another card that's going to reward your Shreds of Time. It's a 4-mana 4/4 dragon. It's got lifesteal as well, which is kind of a way to mitigate the Shreds of Time downside. If you take some damage, like who cares? I'm going to heal it off with the lifesteal, but also Battlecry, cast a Shred of Time from your deck to gain +3/+3. Now, the wording here is interesting. This does say cast a Shred of Time. So I don't know if that means you draw a card off of it, because again, the keyword casts when drawn means that you draw a card. Like, it cycles itself into a new thing. But if you're casting it from your deck, I think that means you're gonna just take the damage and maybe not also draw a card, because it doesn't say like draw a Shred of Time from your deck, because it would say draw a Shred of Time from your deck if it wanted you to actually draw it and get the cast when drawn. The fact that it's casting, it's skipping the draw step basically so that it doesn't cycle into a new card. But, ultimately still, so you're going to take 3 and gain +3/+3. So you're going to have a 4-mana 7/7 with lifesteal, basically to have taken 3 damage, which, I think, again, that's a good exchange for an aggro deck. And the lifesteal helps you mitigate that downside anyway. So it's like, man, I'm just like hammering. I got a 2-mana 4/4, 4-mana 7/7. I'm just hitting big on stats. I got that insane damage output. Like, I like this. I think it goes well nicely. I by the way, I haven't even talked yet about like the pain upside of this. Like sometimes there are other cards, of course, historically in Warlock, where you like taking the damage because the damage is going to enable something else for you. I'm trying to think, do we have any pain support right now in Standard? Even if we don't, obviously it could show up again. But I'm just wondering, do we have anything that rewards you for taking damage? Oh, actually, we still do. Yeah, the Fearless Flame Juggler. Man. So this could even slot into this deck, too, where there's another upside for taking the damage, right? Dude, this deck's got some pieces. You could take 6 real quick and just get a giant 2-drop as well. I never loved that card that much, but definitely another angle for this, which I don't even know if it needs because it already feels like it's doing a lot. Speaking of, here's the Ruinous Velocidrake, a 5-mana 5/5 dragon with Rush and Battlecry. Cast a Shred of Time from your deck to summon a copy of this, which again, that cast to me implies it's not actually getting drawn, so therefore is not drawing you a new card, but you're basically saying, hey, I'm going to take 3 damage in order to summon a copy of this 5/5 Rush, which is solid, dude. I think that's still a really nice follow-up, particularly when we know like clearing enemies is good because it opens up some Tachyon Barrage damage. I could see a lot of scenarios where this is helping you keep the board in check, leaving behind some 5/2s, some 5/3s and stuff that are your opponent's been on the back foot the whole time. They're like, good God, I just can't catch up. I got to deal with these 5/2s, bada boom. I'm playing defensively, I'm not summoning anything. I go into turn 6, Chrono Gore deals 6 to me, or maybe Tachyon Barrages deal 12 to me, and I'm dead because the opponent just kind of overwhelmed me with all of these efficient stats turn after turn. I had a 4-4 and a 7-7, and now I got 10-10 in stats on turn 5. It's like none of it is independently that crazy, but you know, in sequence in all this, like, man, I'm just taking some big hits and it's just too much. It's basically overwhelming me, and I just kind of fell over dead to all of this stuff. So I think, again, this is a really solid on curve follow-up here from your 4-drop that's just keeping the opponent on the back foot. And again, you're happy, I think, to sacrifice 3 damage in order to cheat out all these bonus stats. Shoot, I almost missed a spell. I forgot one of the shreds of time. This is Entropic Continuity, 1-mana spell. Give your minions +1/+1, and of course, shuffle 2 shreds of time into your deck. So you've built up all these minion threats on board, perhaps with the stuff we've already looked at, perhaps other aggressive minions in your deck, and this is, again, a very cheap, efficient way to push some extra stats and some extra aggression. Those little leftover dudes, the 7-7 becomes an 8-8, so on and so forth. Again, yeah, I think this looks pretty clean. It's maybe not quite as exciting as just like raw stats sometimes. I actually could perhaps see this being cut. Board stabilization is definitely valuable. I don't know that 1/1 is like such a significant stabilization that it's worth that many slots in your deck. The deck might just prefer having more actual like 1-drops, for instance, or just more minion consistency. And from a damage follow-up standpoint, like sometimes buffs like this can be great to deal damage going face, right? I don't know, there's enough damage in the package otherwise. So I think this is totally fine. I think this could for sure get run. Certain builds might prefer this if they go a little wider, for instance, but some of those minions in particular looked taller, a 4-4, a 7-7. It wasn't about playing 3 things at once. It was about one big guy, which does seem to go at odds with this just a little bit. So I wouldn't be shocked if this gets cut actually from a Shreds of Time deck, but probably still fine for other like token decks. Like I said before, some decks will just care about this buff because they go wide and not care at all about the Shreds of Time. It's a downside they'll just basically ignore and say, hey, like I just like the wide board buff. So weirdly, maybe not as good in a Shreds of Time deck, but maybe still a totally viable card outside of that, if that makes sense. So that wrapped it up for the Shreds of Time deck. Now we're gonna look at the Rafam ladder. This is funny. 4-mana spell, draw 3 cards of different costs. So obviously it could be a great way to find some Rafams, particularly, depending on deck structure a little bit, right? Like you could have a few slots of Rafams where they're the only card at that cost, so that when this is pulling from different costs, if it finds a 7 and an 8, like, hey, my 7 and an 8 are Rafam. Now it may not always hit a 7 or an 8, it might hit a 1, 2, 3, and like, crap, I already got the Rafams from those stages or whatever. But you could just slightly increase your odds a little bit, I guess, where it's like, hey, if all the 2s are gone, hey, I'm slightly more likely now to hit a 7, which is guaranteed to be a Rafam, etc. But just, a chance to hit 3 unique Rafams here to help you accelerate that Rafam timeline and, end the game more readily. 4-mana draw 3 is not inherently terrible or anything, but I will say, like, we've had a lot cheaper card draw in Hearthstone, and this doesn't feel super efficient to me, and I'm worried, like, a Rafam deck might need more like survivability and stuff that keeps them in the game. I don't know if they're gonna have time to rip a 4-mana draw 3. Feels like they need, just keep things alive, keep me in the game, draw here, draw there, hero power here, hero power there, some cheap card draw weaved in. I don't know if 4-mana draw 3 is going to be able to fit into that deck package. I think you just have to stuff it with other things that solve problems, and this doesn't necessarily solve problems. This advances the win condition, but I don't think you want to like be racing against survivability for your win condition. I think you want your win condition maybe to feel a little bit more like an inevitability as opposed to a race condition, if that makes sense. Like, I think that's probably going to work out better. So I think this card's okay. It could maybe be tossed in, but it's not as compelling to me as other options. Then our final card here is the Bygone Doom Speaker. This is a 3-mana 3/3 with Rewind and Battle Cry. Both players discard a random card. So we'll have Rafam players, and then we'll have people running the Doom Speakers discarding your opponent's Rafams. And with Rewind here, you get a chance to reroll. If I missed Rafam, I get to try again to hit one of those discarded Rafams, which I actually think this card's pretty good. This is fairly cheap disruption with a reroll on it, and that can be really valuable, much like we see stuff like Dirty Rat right now, right? The fact that it's also from hand, is nice. It's actually a resource advantage taken from the opponent, something they were planning to play or do, shifting their game plans around and just like literally costing them a resource in hand for card advantage standpoints. Now you do of course lose one yourself, so you're not netting any card advantage, but in a Warlock sometimes that can be a good thing. We don't have a lot of discard synergies right now, but you could imagine that happening. You could imagine this going into a temporary deck where it's like, I'm just discarding a random temporary card, who cares? Not always, but sometimes, you'd be like, it's fine, I was going to lose it anyway, and the disruption upside on this is high enough that it's probably worth it, because, you're entering into that agreement on your own knowledge in the turn where it's like, hey, I can do this, I don't have anything that scary to lose, but I might kill the opponent's win condition, and that certainly seems like it could be worth it. So I actually think this is a pretty great little disruption tool compared to a lot of the disruption tools we see. I think this will create some very frustrated people and moments, and could be a bit of a hated card for sure. So all that said, let's go ahead and rate these cards from 1 to 5 stars. Time Thief Rafam is a 5-star card. Chrono Gore is a 4-star card. Twilight Time Hopper is a 4-star card. Tachyon Barrage is a 4-star card. Fatebreaker is a 4-star card. Ruinous Velocidrake is a 4-star card. Entropic Continuity is a 3-star card. Rafam Ladder is a 3-star card. Bygone Doom Speaker is a 4-star card. Yeah, man, those are some sick scores for Warlock. This could not have gone more differently than Mage, man. It was like basically the exact opposite. The final 2 reviews. Mage was like all 2s. This is basically all 4s. But I like this package. I'm convinced this is pretty competitive. I think it's not such a big commitment that it's a full deck necessarily, but as a little 6-7 card cycle in other decks, I think it actually fits rather well. I think there's quite a bit to do here. So honestly, Tachyon Barrage is so good. Like, even if you never see Shreds of Time anywhere else, I think this would totally be worth it. I think this is just such an efficient aggro damage piece. Like, screw any other Shred of Time card. I'm just running this because the shreds are not such a big problem. I just use this as damage output. Honestly, this could maybe be a 5-star card. It's not exactly the model we normally see for 5 stars, but I think it's really that good. I think it's crazy high damage output, but I like this entire shell. I think it's all quite competitive. So yeah, Warlock looks pretty nuts. Rafam, by far the most exciting card ever, maybe? Dude, I don't know. This card's sick. It's really cool and fun and creative. What a crazy one to end on. So share your thoughts on these cards down below. Thanks so much, as always, for watching. Stay tuned for some theory crafting videos before too long. We'll do theory crafting decks, I think, soon, this week maybe. So appreciate you all hanging out with me this expansion once again. Love you all a ton. Thanks for watching, and until next time, game on.